I'm delighted to be here, number one, because I live here, number two, because this is an exciting part of public service, is getting out among people, particularly whom I know and care about, and there's nothing like business. You know, we've had a lot of discussion, particularly in the Republican Party, but nationally as well. The Tea Party and other influences have made us all pay attention to the fundamental precepts of our Constitution and asked ourselves, what is the Constitution supposed to do? And how does it limit, and should it limit, the federal government and its powers? But it also occurred to me that while the individual rights and the form of government established in the Constitution, while sacrosanct in our society and civilization, really were predicated upon an economic system. When you think about it, the American Revolution grew out of what? It grew out of resistance to taxes. It was framed ultimately in terms of representation and became a political argument. But if we don't have a functional, sound economy, we don't really have much to worry about in a free press, rights of association, taxation, et cetera, et cetera. People in Zimbabwe are not worried about constitutional rights. They're worried about staying alive. They're worried about what happened to private property. They're worried about the dissolution of entire civilizations and nations. And so, while, we're not completely mercenary in this country, we also have to realize that our economic system is the platform for both our political, governmental system and also our cultural and our culture and civilization. Therefore, what you do in your jobs, in your business, in your investments, really is the fundamental contributor, the foundation, if you will, the platform on which we build the economy, the government, and ultimately our culture and our civilization. So I'm not the least bit ashamed to talk about things of business and our economy. Moreover, in Utah, we understand some core concepts that are quasi-governmental, quasi-economic, and they are this: that our economic system drives who we are. Government does not. Government does not create. Government has certain functions. Essentially, they're foundational. They create a platform on which we can build, on which we have stability. So we have rules of law which allow people to predict what can be done. We have, on the margins of business, we have regulation so that we have essential fairness in the marketplace. And we're always debating less or more on the regulatory side, and Governor Herbert and I are always less. The longer I live, the more inclined I am to give people the freedom of choice, and the less inclined I am to legislate to problems. And that raises difficulties. And when you sit on a city councilor, a county commissioner, whatever, it's very tempting, because you can do something, to do it. A little example. When I was in Farmington on the city councilor, mayor, we had a problem with a great big long, it was a big tanker with a pup. And he parked that right outside the subdivision, but it was in the entryway to a subdivision. Well, as the kids came home from school on this street, there was the sidewalk was between this big fence and this big long 100. John, how you doing? There's our Utah guy. You guys got the big guys here. Anyway, they kind of had to walk down this tunnel between the truck and the fence, and it was very insecure. You just didn't want your little ones doing that, so they were all going out in the street. Well, you know what that is with a herd of kids, and so the moms come to us, and we're very concerned about it. And we talked about an ordinance. And finally we said, you know what, let's not. And our city manager called the owner and worked something out, and it got solved, and we didn't pass an ordinance. And that's what happens. That's legislation by anecdote, right? So all of a sudden we have a law in the books a law of good intentions to solve one problem, but then it creates all kinds of other unintended consequences. So there's a concept of judicial restraint among courts. There used to be. And what it is, it basically says that if you must decide the case, then decide it on the narrowest grounds possible. That's a good rule for legislators and governors. If you have to enter into the field, then do it on the most limited basis possible. Well, I want to talk to you today about Utah's economy and about your role in that, and I hope I can get you a little excited about what we have. A lot of uncertainty in the world today. I mean, holy cow. You know, if you're neurotic, you got ammunition for lots of hand-wringing. You know, you can see a lot of bad news out there. But if you live in Utah, you should be optimistic. You should be excited. You should feel very fortunate that you live here. So, I'm kind of an amateur economist. Now here's an assembly of some kudos Utah's received. And I give these to you in this understanding that if you don't have a job, you don't really care how Utah's rated, right? But on the other hand, it does give you kind of a plot on the graph of where Utah is. And so here we have Utah, number one, best state for business, third year in a row, Forbes magazine. Steve Forbes was here 3 or 4 months ago, met with the governor, and he says, Governor, you get it. You get it better than any governor in any state in America. You guys understand in Utah what it is to run a state and to make it good for business. We're the best managed state in terms of our state finances. Best economic recovery coming out of the recession. This one is amazing to me. Fortune magazine surveyed the entire world, not North America, not the United States. Shirley, how come you're not sitting by your husband? You guys having a little trouble there? Anyway, all right. And they came up with the 15 hottest emerging markets in the world. Okay? 3 of them in North America, 1 in Vancouver, 2 of them in the United States, 1 in Austin, Texas, 1 in Salt Lake City, Utah. I mean, I don't know how you feel about that, but I just about went, Lord, it is enough, you know. I mean, that's just remarkable. Now think about where we were 20, 25 years ago. When kids in my vintage came out of Weber State University, Bruce, it was tough to find a job. I mean, you went to Hill Field, you went to the IRS, you went to your dad's insurance business, you went into a retail thing, a sales thing, you know, auto, real estate, construction-related, bank, finance, title, brokerage, you know, but that was our economy. Extractive industry, mining, you know, we had the Kennecott, we're rich, the commodities are high, there's a strike, you know, we're poor. It just boom, bust, boom, bust. And we were out of cycle with the national economy, which was good sometimes and bad sometimes. And it was very difficult to find a job. And so our kids just scattered, you know. We had the Utah diaspora, where our kids were all over the world, all over the United States, working for great companies. When I was running a law firm in the 80s and 90s, I cannot tell you the number of people knocking on our door saying, hey, I'm general counsel for a subsidiary of Mobil, you know, I want to come home. Well, if you can bring Mobil, come on home, we'll put you in our firm. Well, I can't bring Mobil. Well, we can't pay you $500,000 if you're going to come do divorces for a year, you know. So it was hard to get home. It was hard to get in Utah, and it was hard to start in Utah. Well, about sometime in the 90s, that started to crack open. And our economy got a little more diversified. We started somehow shaping it in more with the national economy. We had more of a distributor business. We became a lot of warehousing, a lot of distribution, a real trucking and shipping center. And then I say sometime, around the Olympics. It seems like the Olympics just kind of went click and turned us on and connected us with the rest of the nation. And I was one that kind of didn't want to be discovered. Sarajevo got discovered, and they had a civil war and destroyed their country. And I thought, well, that's not a good omen. But anyway, we got discovered, and since 2002, we have been smoking. We have been smoking. It's just really quite remarkable. We are now ranked. Now, these are business site selection magazines. These are magazines of people who professionally go to Johnson & Johnson and Kimberly-Clark and General Motors and say, okay, you're looking for a new plant. You want the lowest tax, you want the most incentives, you want the best power, you want the best labor, the cheapest real estate, the best utilities, best governmental support, lowest regulation, best shipping costs. And they go through hundreds of considerations. And so this magazine tries to winnow it down and helps these folks clue in on a few places. And their last issue said that Utah has the #1 best quality of life in the United States. That we have the #2 best education climate, the #3 best business climate, the #7 economic growth potential, #7 employment leaders, best transportation infrastructure, the best business climate. And you think about, oh, thank you. That's more better. Where Forbes says we're America's best state to live in, our national parks, ski resorts, economic vitality, our health care. Mr. Dallin is, there's a very impressive chart that I didn't get in these slides. And up here, let's see, this is most affordable health care, least affordable health care, least quality, best quality. So if you're up here, most affordable and best quality, if you want to be up in this corner of the square, if you can visualize that, Utah's right there, right in that sweet spot. Intermountain, there's an article in Time. When did that come out, Chris?
A couple years ago.
Yeah. Saying we shouldn't be importing Canadian healthcare, we shouldn't be importing Danish healthcare, we should be importing Utah healthcare to the United States. If everyone in the Medicare system were treated with Utah healthcare, Medicare would save 33%. Now, that's a bottom line number. The reason we have the Utah Health Exchange and the Governor's Office of Economic Development, Governor Huntsman said, hey, this is a major business cost. This is, in essence, a tax. If you're comparing Minnesota with Utah, and health costs in Utah are here, and they're $300 an employee a month more, that's a tax. If the power costs are this much more in Minnesota than Utah, that's a tax. We're among the lowest cost utility. We have the lowest natural gas price in the nation. We're in the top 10 best pricing for electricity in the nation. So these are factors that really make a difference. We've had a rainy day fund in state government of about $500 million. That's what it's allowed us not to deficit finance. Most states have had to go like this in terms of their response to the downturn. They had the big drop. In fact, it's not even like this. It's just like that. And now others are going like that. They're not going like that fast enough according to what they need to, but we just went like this. It's just as smooth as can be. And we had a lot of other money stored away in other ways I won't go into. We have a pro-business environment. We have a AAA bond rating, low taxes. I wish you could have read the press release that Janicki, Janicki moved in. They had a contract at Hill Field, and they also do some production of some alternate energy facilities. And their press release when they moved to Layton said, "We're coming to Utah because Utah has a stable, predictable regulatory environment, a stable, low-cost tax environment, and a stable, predictable legislative and judicial environment." So they made a business decision. The first time they've ever branched, they made a decision based upon what? The way our government acts and behaves itself. Because the brother of the CEO of Janicki runs a logging company in Washington, and the burden of his workers' compensation per employee, per hour, this is firsthand, guys. This is not anecdotal. Firsthand. $15 an hour. I said, the wage is $15 an hour. He said, no. The per hour cost per employee in logging of workers' compensation. You wonder why your studs and planks cost a lot? I mean, come on, America. We cannot afford that. We cannot afford that. That's what's happened to California. California over-sophisticated their regulation to the point that nobody can afford California. If you buy a house in California, before you buy a dirt clod, you're in there about $75,000 for impact fees, building fees and impact fees. That's just boom, right? That's to get a building permit. Then you got to go through, build it, the construction costs. Then the building codes are so stringent that you can hardly afford it. So that's why people can hardly afford a home in California. It's just nuts, and we don't have that. I'm amazed at this, I'll tell you. Until I got into the governor's office, I did not understand the drive that imports provide to our economy. It is a big, big deal. I'll tell you, there's some Chinese guy in my office almost every day. Vice governor of technology in province, and they bring 200 of them at a time. And they love Utah. And they're not over here, they're not going to Lagoon, Dick, but they're over here making deals. It's unbelievable. I wish I could show you some of the deals they're doing. It's just crazy. They bring a checkbook. They invest in Utah, and they also want us to come over there. The Minister of Mines and Commerce from Brazil was here a month and a half ago. I couldn't get the guy out of the conference room. He wanted me to commit to a trade mission so badly, go down to Brazil. He wouldn't be put off. It's just, I'm telling you, we're just known. People want to do business with us. Really exciting. We're the only state to double exports in the last 5 years. Okay, what are our two largest exports? What's the number one largest? By 1 million miles. Precious metals. Yep. And people are going through their old... In Nevada, everybody is going back to their old tailings and looking for gold. And molybdenum and all that stuff. Molybdenum and all that stuff. Because, at $350 it was not worth this, and now at whatever, it's worth a lot. So, and that's like $7 billion, and then the next one is software products, and that's about $2.5 billion, and that's climbing. We're getting a real reputation for that. Okay, I want you to understand these incentives. Utah does not write checks to companies to get them to come here. What we say is Adobe, you want to come here. IM Flash, you want to come here. Sun Systems, you want to come here. Okay, here's what we'll do. Let's benchmark what your income tax is going to be. Let's benchmark what the employee's income tax is going to be. Okay? So what's going to be the state revenue? What increment of value will you as a company add to Utah's economy? And so as we set those mileposts, as they reach them, in other words, out of money we wouldn't have had they not moved here, then we say, we will give you a credit back against that tax. So we never give them a check. We just simply say, hey, if you add $100 million to our economy, we'll give you a credit against that as you build out. So it's really an ingenious system, and it's worked very, very well. We have 7 clusters, and of course this area is uniquely positioned for aviation, aerospace, defense, homeland security, and composites that we do so much of at DATC. And so I know we're a little nervous now about Hill and what it's going to do, but we have a great reputation. We have a lot of points on our side, and I think we're going to be okay. But we all know the federal government's got to get smaller, leaner and meaner, and we're all going to have to contribute to that. We just want to make sure it's a fair process. Utah's workforce is in much demand because we're young, we're educated, we're bilingual, we show up to work, tend to be people of integrity, very professional. Our employers like to come to Utah. I get this all the time. We have a problem, though. 2 problems. Number one, our outlay on primary education, elementary education, is not keeping pace, and our performance is dipping. We're not putting the investment we need to into elementary education. K-12, we're just not. And, you know, there's a saying at the legislature, it's not about money. It's not all about money. Yeah, it is not all about money, but it's about money. I mean, you know, you get 42, can you imagine teaching 42 of me in 10th grade algebra like my neighbor does? I mean, I just can't even imagine how you do that. And we just can't, we're not going to compete. We just can't. Our kids aren't going into the science, technology, engineering, math. And we need talented, motivated math teachers with personalities who can, get these kids involved. Likewise, we're starting to lose ground in education. Now, we don't define higher education as just graduating with a BS. We also mean completing a certificate at the ATC or some on-the-job professional certificate. But notice the baby boomers. So over there you have the retired folks, 45 to 64 baby boomers. Look, the Utah is the blue. They completed college at 32%, and the U.S. was about 28%. Notice how we're declining. Now notice that we're down to 30%, and it's falling. It's falling particularly among young men. Our young women have never been up to the national average because of our unique demographics, because young women typically, when they get married, they drop out, support the husband. He gets his education so he can divorce her, get the trophy wife, and then she goes back to school 20 years later. Okay, what have you done for me lately? Anyway, this is of great concern to me because the jobs that are coming to Utah are not blue-collar. Well, they are. There are a lot of blue-collar jobs, but they're not sub-high school jobs. If you want to go to L3 and get an excellent manufacturing job, you can. But you're going to have at least a high school education, and you're going to have some physical skills that you've developed at an ATC, and you've got to have some significant on-the-job training, and probably you need to understand some math, and you need to know how to write. And our employers are telling us our graduates from school cannot write. 2 things they're saying: they cannot write well, and they don't have soft skills. They can quote every line of Battlestar Galactica for 4 seasons, but they don't interact with people very well, except like this. Here's another way to say it. Unemployment rates by education level. Now notice this. Oh, there we go. All right. So if you're a high school dropout, so here we have, this is January of 07 through July of 09. So if you have a high school, if you dropped out from high school, the unemployment rate for you as the recession occurred went to from about 7% to 15%, and that's about what it is now. It's 15%. If you're a high school graduate, it's now around 9.5% to 10%. If you have some college or an associate's degree, it's about 8%. If you have a bachelor's degree, it's 4.7%. Now that's selective, you know. If you're an art history major, you probably don't have as much employment opportunity as you do if you're an accountant. But still, the story needs to be told, and we need to teach our children and our grandchildren this lesson. Education is the key to the future. You heard my bio. It's not by way of Exeter and Harvard that I'm here. It's Ogden High School, 8 children. All 8 of us graduated from Ogden High School. All 8 of us graduated from Weber State. We all went to advanced degrees. Harvard, University of Utah. How could we do that? Because we were rich? No. Because we had an awesome ethic in our home to get education. Because our parents pushed us. Because it cost $76 the first quarter for me to walk over to Weber and pay my tuition. You don't even know what a quarter is, but anyway, I got a fabulous education. And our kids have got to get that education. Do you see the breakout of our tuition costs? Relative tuition costs? Yeah, it's expensive. $2,500 a semester to go to the U. But guess what, guys? Relative to other states, did you see? I mean, it's the bargain. You don't have to go to Rutgers or Brown or Princeton. We have tremendous institutions here, and we have to take advantage of them, or we're going to fall behind, and we're starting to fall behind. I tell you that because you're all from Utah. If you weren't, I wouldn't. Okay, here we have, this is a little hard to read, but suffice it to say that the single biggest predictor of poverty is a young woman with children. And if she's below 20, it's not a predictor, it's a guarantee. So, teenage pregnancy is a scourge. It is the foundation and the beginning of intergenerational poverty. That's where it is. And we're adopting out. I'm going to editorialize here. Guess what the adoption rate of children born to a single mother is?
50?
Less than 1% nationally. Guess what it is in Utah? Less than 1%. Do you know why? Grandmas. Grandmas want to hold on to that baby. And you can understand that. That's a pull. That's a relationship. But who raises that baby? A 65-year-old, and then a 70-year-old, and then a 75-year-old grandma who may get diabetes, who may go down, who was not meant to raise little kids. And those kids, anyway, I don't mean to be offensive, but I'm just telling you, we are blowing it bad. And this, if you want to look at dependency, if you want to look at competition for resources in our state for public education, the biggest bullet pointed at higher education in this state is Medicaid. Because Medicaid is unlimited. We have to fund it no matter what it is. We just have to fund it. And who does it go to? It goes to those in poverty. People who are not supporting themselves. So if we want to make some social change here, if we want to affect the quality of higher education, we have got to get serious about dealing with these social issues. Where do Davis County students go? Now, we don't have private proprietary school information, but this is interesting. Is that just amazing? I mean, the connection with Weber in Davis County is remarkable. And that obviously, Dr. Davis, has so much to do with this facility. And the legislature's investment in this campus by doing a twin to this building just speaks volumes and will cement Weber's place. And someday Weber's presence in Davis County may eclipse Ogden's. I don't know. Utah's economic conditions, we're growing 3 times the national average. And it's fairly robust. It's not bad, really. Here's from the Kansas City Fed. I got these 2 days ago. This is the third quarter growth matched recovery average. So in other words, we're looking back to see what's been the average growth rate during our recovery. And we've had ups and downs. It's been very inconstant, but the average growth rate has been 2.5% nationally. It's not bad at all. Here's a tough number. This shows you how deep the recession was, because these are how many quarters it took to recover from other recessions. So it took 5 quarters to recover from the 48 recession. It took 8 quarters from the 73 recession. So far, it's taken 15 quarters to recover from the Great Recession. So you can see why we've been hurt so badly. Had we been able to sustain our GDP growth without the recession, our GDP would be at over $14.5 trillion, and instead it's under $13.5. That's real money. I mean, just think of the tax on that. If we had the tax on that, that's another $250 billion. So here's a concern. What got us into the Great Recession, of course, was people talk about the housing boom. What it really was personal debt. In the 90s, everybody discovered the home equity loan. And so they started borrowing against their equity. Well, that fed a need to know the value of your home. And so people started regarding their home as an investment rather than as a necessity, rather than as a cost. And so because they borrowed so much, then they were into the home, and values stayed artificially high, could not be adjusted because people would not transact unless they could get out whole. And here's what's happening now. Again, our personal savings rate is dipping. Remember, we were all scared in 2008. We started saving money. Well, people are starting not to save money. Pardon me. And so the green is the personal savings rate, and the blue, the red is real disposable personal income. So we're spending more than we're making again. And this bubble is not good. That's called MasterCard fees. All right, here's a little good news, and that's light vehicle sales over the last 2 years. We've had some ups and downs, but at the peak, I think we were, before the recession, around 19 million units, and now we're at approaching 13.5. So we're getting back. Anyway, those are the slides I wanted to show you. And Jim, I don't know, we're probably out of time, or do you want to take? Okay. Anyway, I'm delighted to be with you. Thank you for your patience. Be optimistic. Don't be pessimistic. Utah is a great place to be, and you guys make it happen. So thank you very much.